Everything for me tends to come back to value. What value are you creating? And more importantly, how does the person or the businesses that you're trying to serve, how do they perceive that value?
Welcome to the Video Entrepreneur Podcast, powered by Uscreen.tv. This is your host, Rob Balasabas, Head of Partnerships here at Uscreen. This is a podcast that talks about what it takes to build a successful online video business. And every week we'll take behind the scenes with top video creators, experts, and entrepreneurs to discuss the world of online videos and what it really takes to build a thriving video business. If you're new to our podcast, welcome, glad to have you here. But if you've caught some of our episodes already, glad to have you back. Today we have Jeff Cobb joining me to talk about the state of the e-learning industry, as well as what it takes to build a successful online course business. Jeff is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience helping people maximize the reach, revenue, and impact of their learning businesses. And as is the case with many successful entrepreneurs, he's got a lot of impressive projects under his belt. I can't wait to learn more about all of it with all of you. So without further ado, let's talk to Jeff Cobb. All right, Jeff, nice to have you on the podcast. Really excited. I have been following you for quite a while and kind of seeing all of your work around the e-learning space. So you're a bit of a legend in my eyes. So good to be here on the podcast with you. Before we dive in, for our audience, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your history and sort of the background, how you got into the e-learning space.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me here, Rob. And legend. Wow. I think that may be the first time I've been called that. I'm not sure I deserve it, but I'll certainly take it. So I'm Jeff Cobb. I am the co-founder and managing director of a company called Tagoras. And aside from consulting with organizations in the education business, we also manage a sort of a portfolio of channels that help people in the world of lifelong learning. So we've got a lifelong learner site, Mission to Learn. We've got a site dedicated to kind of large organizations that deliver continuing education and professional development. That's called Leading Learning. And then we've got our Learning Revolution site, which is maybe most relevant to listeners here, that's focused on solopreneurs and small companies that recognize the opportunity that's out there right now for serving this kind of global market for lifelong learning. And I've been in this business a long time. It's hard to believe how long at this point. I kind of got involved in the mid 90s when it was like the dot-com days, and everybody was throwing money at technology companies, and that included e-learning companies. So I got involved with an e-learning company, helped to grow that and build it and sell it. And then I started first company of my own, which was a course creation and a learning management system platform company. Built that up, sold it, worked for the company that bought us for a while. And then after that, decided I needed to be out on my own again. It's hard to work for other people once you've been out on your own a lot, and started Tagoras. And I've been doing this for 15 years now. Have a long list of clients and just, deeply immersed in everything that's going on in terms of the learning business, as I like to call it.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about here at Uscreen about, sort of the solopreneurs and the entrepreneurs, and also some of the brands as well that are using, platforms like Uscreen to, build out programs and things. But this e-learning space is massive beyond that. I'm sure you've seen it because you're working with corporations and brands and associations, like professional associations as well, right? So
Right.
That must be interesting for you to see sort of just how wide and big, e-learning is being adopted.
I mean, it's just such a huge market now. I think the numbers are around something like 400 billion globally, and that's probably not even taking everything into account. And, when I got started in the business, it was an outlier. Like, people didn't quite know what to do with e-learning, and it took quite a while for it to happen. But at this point, particularly because of what COVID has done, it's become fully mainstream. You can't not be doing e-learning at this point if you have anything to do with education.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too to start seeing brands gravitating to e-learning as a way to even, do onboarding and even doing lead generation through e-learning, right? Like, not selling by teaching, and sort of that approach as well. So, you mentioned COVID, pandemic, it's crazy. I think everybody's sort of in the online space, somewhere involved in some type of online business entrepreneurship, have, they've experienced growth over the last, couple years, I would say in general. How is it? How have you seen it? In the e-learning space, during this time.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I'm always a little hesitant to talk about it because I know so many people have been hurt by what's happened with COVID. But our company is definitely one of those, what I've heard called COVID winners, just because of what we do. When COVID came along, all of the types of organizations we work with had to move their education online, had to move their events online. And, that's right in our sweet spot. So our digital phones, I guess, were ringing off the hook when that happened. And, a lot of the types of organizations and people we deal with had been doing things with online education, online events, but they probably hadn't been doing enough. And then there were, quite a few who kind of got caught out by this. They really hadn't been doing anything. So a lot of scrambling. And, it's been interesting to see it develop over the past couple of years. Those companies, those organizations, the solopreneurs have had to really up their game. They've had to learn how to do online well, and really deliver impact with online. And at the same time, on the end user side, people who had never tried e-learning before, never attended an online event before, or had done very little of it, suddenly it's what they have to do. So they're immersed in it and they become a lot better at it. Their expectations go through the roof. So in terms of just the market that's out there for online content, education, events, it's skyrocketed. It's gotten much bigger. It's much more competitive, and the expectations for what you deliver at this point are much higher than they used to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. The expectation, I guess maybe say a few years ago when, we had the option, do we want to go to an in-person workshop or an in-person conference, or, there's this virtual option. It was kind of like a afterthought. And I've noticed that during the pandemic, sort of the quality of the content, that people are putting into their programs, their memberships, their online courses, it's just really stepped up. It's more engaging, they're really formatting it for the online viewer. You'll never replicate that experience in person online, but it's getting quite close, isn't it?
Oh yeah, people are getting much better at it. I think, you referenced earlier, like brands getting into this and using it as a form of customer outreach and holding their own online events. And, they're throwing big money at it. And when that starts happening, the quality, the standard is going to go up, not just the production, but also the actual impact value of it, the educational value that it's delivering results for the people who show up. Because, we know that, the competition for people's attention at this point with the huge amount of content and online experiences that are out there, if you're not delivering something that's really going to produce an impact for somebody who's deciding to attend, you're not going to be doing it for very long.
That's true. It's kind of like that short-term, vision versus that long-term and building that out. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, creating offerings versus just products. This is, I think, some of the things that you talk about. What's your take on that? Offerings versus products.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of an academic distinction, but it's really not. If you think about, your average solopreneur or small business, or even a bigger organization that's creating, say, an online course. That's going to be a typical thing that people refer to as a product in this world. And they tend to focus on that one thing. It might be, say, an on-demand video series that they're creating, and so they put all their effort into that, but they don't think enough about how they can leverage that, all of the opportunities that come with that sort of core product offering. Because, if you create an online video course, you're of course going to be able to carve out videos from that you might be able to make free to spotlight some content and spotlight your expertise, whether it's on YouTube or another channel. And then you can build things around those video offerings. You might decide to offer a cohort-based version of it, where you're running groups, say, at a business through your course and helping to facilitate that and add some extra value to it. You might attach it to some personalized coaching or even some consulting. So, everything that you create, you should think about the range of variations that you can create with that product to turn it into an offering. And this jives with a concept we have called the value ramp, which, if you think about it, price and value correlate. And for your highest priced offerings, you're going to want to deliver a huge amount of value. For your sort of lower value, but still valuable, but lower value offerings, you're going to charge much less, or maybe even make that free. And we think about sort of a curve. If you think a curve starting at the kind of lower left side of a page that you're writing on, and then arcing up to the right side. At the upper right side, you're going to have your highest value, your ultimate value offerings. And then at the very lower left side, you might have free or low cost things. All of that can happen around a single product when you turn it into an offering. You can go from free up to very high priced. And when you start with those free or lower price, you're building momentum to send people up that value ramp. And it's a way to meet your customers where they are, because particularly when you first connect with a prospective customer, they may not be willing to shell out, $500 for a course, or, $2,000 for a really, customized educational offering. But if you can give them something a little lower, a carve out from whatever you've created, or even give them a little free content to help start to build that trust and that authority, you're going to be much, much more successful. So that's why we really focus on offerings rather than just the single product. Every single product has the potential to be an offering, to create a value ramp, and then of course you can have multiple offerings filling out your value ramp.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's really smart. I do see that on your blog actually. It's fantastic that the illustration of that, sort of the free from like a blog post. Right? Your blog content is completely free. Your YouTube videos are completely free, and it kind of works its way up all the way to consulting, one-on-one consulting, I suppose, which is super high ticket, right? Because it's one-on-one, your time. Yeah, it really makes me think about, as a content creator, or as somebody that is creating courses, you're really trying to be a master of content distribution, right? Yep. Because you're looking at your content. What goes into the free, what goes into YouTube, what goes into the course. I don't like saying the word save, because I know that a lot of people that create courses, they're not holding anything back, but they are putting sort of tiers to access to them. Is that more the value? Is it the access, or is it the content when it comes to courses, Jeff?
It's usually a combination. There are probably certain parts of content you want to hold back, the stuff that may be a little bit more advanced, a little closer to whatever your secret sauce is. Yeah. But also as you're moving up that curve, as you're delivering more value, typically you're going to have a closer relationship with that customer, with that learner that you're working with. So they're going to have more access to you, more frequent access, more personalized access, all the way up to it being, individual and one-on-one. But it's a combination of that happening. At that lower left, it's much more transactional. They're going to be able to come on your website. They're going to be able to get whatever they need right away. But as you go up the ramp, it becomes much more of a relationship, much more personalized, and the content becomes, deeper and deeper and more focused.
Yeah, that's good. With somebody that is starting out. So if there's somebody listening right now or watching us and listening to our conversation here, and they may have a YouTube channel or they may have a podcast. It's free content, and there's a lot of conversation right now with content creators. It's easier to make money from the platforms that they share the content on. So, bloggers, they make money from AdSense, and so do YouTubers. Podcasters, same thing. They make money from, ads and things like that. But it does, the differentiator that I notice is that, content creators that become successful are able to create their own products and sort of control those levers to make money directly from their audience. And that's sort of the game changer for the most part in general, and in my observation. So what advice would you have to somebody that has free content, and then they may have the consulting, which based on the value ramp, it's too far of a bridge, right? It's right. Too far disconnected to bridge from free content to $500 an hour for consulting, let's say. What is sort of the next steps or the things that they need to establish first to sort of build that value ramp? Do they start from the bottom?
You can go from either direction, and it's very typical to have the stuff at the bottom and the stuff at the top. We often find this, and that there's not much in the middle. So just even having the value ramp concept in mind, you start to realize there can be a middle there, because the idea of offerings, the idea of spreading value across the ramp, that's an approach to revenue diversification as well. So you're not dependent on one source. So, maybe you are getting the AdSense revenue or the affiliate revenue through your free offerings, and that's great. I mean, do that, maximize that, and maybe you are getting the $500 an hour, and keep doing that. But either one of those can dry up in various ways. So you want to diversify your risk, diversify your revenue. Let's say you are at the bottom and you haven't gotten to the $500 yet. Chances are you can take whatever content you have and figure a way to package it together into a higher value format. So if you've got a bunch of YouTube videos or videos you've created and put them on YouTube, you may very well be able to put those into a platform like Uscreen, package them up into more of a course structure, add some downloadables, maybe add some live sessions that are going to accompany the course if you want to add even more value. And once you do that, you're at a point where you can charge for that content that you've already created, that you've had out there for free, because it's a different experience and it's a different value level when it's put together in a meaningful way, when there's a little bit of access to you, when maybe you've added some documents, some checklists, some things that help them take action with that content to it. So, it's really just looking at what you've got and brainstorming about it. You can do it from the opposite direction too. We've done this when you think about what you do as a consultant. For example, we've done a lot of very high-priced learning platform selection work for big organizations. Well, we've taken that and carved it out into sort of our basic process and put it into a sort of coached boot camp that we do over a 5-week period. And we don't charge nearly as much for that, but we can charge quite a bit for it because it's got a lot of value associated with it, and we've got the reputation, and we're able to do that. So, thinking from both ends of your value ramp, if you've got things at both ends, and just really having that concept of building out that portfolio is very powerful.
I like what you said about sort of diversifying your revenue streams, because there are some people that can't afford your consulting. And so you have other offerings in the meantime, on-demand courses that they can consume and learn from and still get value from. And then maybe as they grow their business, then maybe they'll get up there in terms of revenue and be able to afford you, in your consulting.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really fantastic. I want to stay on, just creating and starting your online courses. Is there value in terms of pricing? Does the length of the course play a factor into pricing? Or is it more the content and the value? Like, pricing is such a moving target. And I'm sure that our listeners are like, well, I'd love to create a course, but is this a $50 course? Do I start lower and do I increase as, I establish myself a little bit more? Or, what's your sort of mentality around pricing a course?
Everything for me tends to come back to value. What value are you creating? And more importantly, how does the person or the businesses that you're trying to serve, how do they perceive that value? So, length may matter. It's one of those sort of psychological triggers that if people see a bunch of content, they think maybe that's more valuable. But of course, in reality, it may not be. What's important is you need to solve the problem or help the person achieve the opportunity that they're pursuing. And so in the first place, you have to understand what that is. You really have to understand your audience, the individuals in your audience, and kind of what's making them tick and what they're going to think is valuable. If you empower them to do X, what's that worth to them? And really try to monetize that. Think about, financially, if you're able to give the person the skills they need to advance in their career, that might be worth, another $20,000 a year in salary for them. So back that into, okay, they should be willing to pay $1,000 or $2,000 for a course that's going to do that for them, because that's going to be a significant long-term return for them. So really thinking about it from that perspective, not so much about length, but about really having the targeted content that's going to achieve value. And again, the ability to have access to you as an expert is always a value lever. You have to watch, what's it's possible to scale or not scale relative to that. But, even doing, group coaching or large scale live sessions to accompany whatever you're doing in terms of on-demand content, that's immediately going to escalate value. And I think in terms of a pricing trigger, psychologically, when people know they're going to have some level of access to the expert, they immediately get that that's going to cost more.
In terms of, again, speaking to, content creators already that are, creating content on YouTube and everything, what would be the difference between an online course versus a tutorial on YouTube? Again, coming back to content distribution, because I do find that there's a lot of similarities, but I think there's some specific differences in terms of what you can get in an online course versus just free content on YouTube.
Yeah, something like a tutorial on YouTube, obviously, can be very valuable. I'm doing some myself right now on kind of online audio editing. Incredible stuff, but it tends to be very how to, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, that somebody can walk through pretty easily. And as a result, you'll see a lot of that very similar content around those types of tutorials. I think when you get into a course, you may still have some of that type of how-to content, but you're going to have a lot more of the bigger picture, the why, a lot more to really help take the person through applying it in their own situation. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, personalized coaching. It can be, checklists and different ways to apply the content. It may be some peer-to-peer learning that's going on. So I don't think there's like a huge gap between them. It's more sort of how they're packaged up and how they're positioned, and also just how easy it is to get something that's, the same out there. I probably am not going to pay for a course on how to do audio editing because I know that there are a lot of them out there for free. So you have to figure out, how do you uniquely position yourself, and how do you uniquely position how you're approaching the problem or the opportunity that you're teaching about, and then packaging things up in a way that really makes that clear that this isn't something that you're just going to be able to get on YouTube.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. I think that's kind of like why I pick up courses is the order. I don't have to stitch together a bunch of YouTube videos to understand exactly what I need to do here. And also, I think also community, what you mentioned there a little bit, that interaction is also important. If that's something that the course creator does offer, I think that's enticing for me anyway. So that's really good. In terms of the online course creator, what are some, couple traits or characteristics of a really impactful online course creator or online instructor?
Well, one of them is what I was just referencing, that they truly understand their audience. They know what that audience values, what they're really trying to achieve through the learning experience, and they design their course to meet that, as opposed to just trying to showcase their own expertise. Those two things need to come together. Your own expertise has to match up very tightly with what it is that your learners actually value, where they're looking to create positive change. And I think, directly related to that is the best ones, and this kind of goes back to something you were asking about earlier about sort of course length and value. I think the best course creators, the best online instructors, fully realize and they fully internalize the idea that less is more. You get too many situations where you've got an expert who just wants to, cram everything they can into an offering, teach everything they know about a particular topic. And usually the case is that, your learners, they don't want to know everything. They're trying to solve particular problems, and they want content that's really tailored to that, and that they feel confident when they put that credit card in and pay for your course, that it's going to solve that specific problem that they're after. So the best teachers, the best instructors, and this is, online or off, doesn't matter, really understand that. The third thing I'd mention and this applies particularly to online, though it applies in the classroom, in person as well, but just really understanding the basics of good slide design. And, that might seem like 101, but there's just still so much bad PowerPoint out there, or whatever slide program you use. And, part of the problem, again, is just trying to cram too much content into slides, being text heavy, or just trying to address too many things with one slide. Another really common problem is, instructors have been told it needs to be more visual, it needs to have some things that get attention. So they'll shove in, a video or a cute graphic or something like that, which may get people's attention, may get a laugh or something like that, but it has nothing to do with, the objectives that you're actually trying to achieve. And all it ends up doing is creating a distraction, increasing what's called cognitive load, what we're able to process at one time, and just makes the whole experience less effective. So, there's just some good basics and fundamentals of slide design. And we're actually addressing this this year with one of our new offerings. We've got a new course out with all sorts of variations and how it can be used, called Presenting for Impact. And we get into, how do you pare down your content? How do you really focus the objectives of the course? How do you create slides that actually, align with that and are going to help you as an online presenter really deliver some educational impact? And because of what we were talking about earlier, the whole landscape changing and becoming much more competitive, much more crowded, that's becoming just much, much more important.
Yeah, there is a lot that goes into becoming a really impactful, successful online course creator, to then really deliver that value to your students. And actually, it's a really good segue. I have one final question for you, Jeff. But before we do that, I want to mention a couple things that you do have for our audience. One of them is the toolbox that you have. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll have the links in the show notes or in the description for you guys to download this. But yeah, Jeff, tell us about the toolbox.
Sure. This is something I put together actually sort of as a follow-on to my book, Leading the Learning Revolution, because I was seeing that there are so many great tools out there that you can use as an edupreneur or somebody who's creating courses and other types of learning content. But it can be hard to get a handle on them. There's just so much stuff out there. So I created a toolbox to really go through the different tools that cover, creating, selling, delivering, any sort of online course experience, and just package that up in a way to make it really accessible. I talk about those different areas of sort of creating value through online education experiences, and then the tools that align with those different areas of value. So this is free. You can download it on Learning Revolution. Just go to learningrevolution.net/toolbox, and and that's it's been very, very popular with our readers.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I did see sort of like the breakdown of the different outline bullet points of what's covered in the toolbox. It's really interesting to see that there's a lot of it is marketing and promotion strategies, hosting a webinar or podcast, right? Like creating that, because it's very important to obviously create a course that has value, but it's also then very important to understand how to market it and promote it. Yep. If nobody knows about this amazing program that you have, nobody's gonna be able to catch it. So no, that's really good. So yeah, make sure you guys download that. It's free. Thank you, Jeff, for being so generous to share that. We'll have that in the show notes in the description to grab that as well. And so my final question for you, Jeff, being in this in this space for many years now, and really seeing sort of the evolution of online learning. The world is in a crazy, crazy time in history with the pandemic. Fast forwarded everything and just brought everything, to the front of like e-learning, video content, live streaming. Where do you see the future of online learning?
I think that there probably will be more courses, but I think it's becoming more and more possible to consume a variety of different content and pull content from multiple sources into really customized learning experiences. So maybe some blog content, some videos, but then coupled with an online course, maybe coupled with some community aspects. One of the areas I'm most excited about, and it's already infusing its way into our lives much more than I think most people realize, is artificial intelligence. And what that's going to do for us. And I think increasingly we're going to see platforms that have artificial intelligence under the hood and are able to do what I just described. So they might be centered around courses, but they also have the ability to go out and grab other resources based on the person's interest and to assemble those together, so you have a really comprehensive learning experience around whatever you're trying to dig deep on. And it sounds futuristic, but essentially Amazon's already doing a lot of that with sort of the machine learning and everything that's underlying all of its algorithms. We're just going to see more and more of that coming into platforms and being able to deliver a much, much more personalized experience. Really down to the very specific needs of the very specific person, and assembling the right content on the fly. And I think that's going to be well within the reach of not just huge corporations, but even the solo edupreneur within the next few years.
Yeah, I see that too. That's actually a really good point. Never thought about AI affecting online learning, just because it's such a personal, exchange of information. But yes, I mean, AI is definitely going to get into that as well. So very exciting, very exciting. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Like I said, been following you for years, and it's just an honor to have you on the podcast with us here at Uscreen. And I think you have so much, knowledge to share with our audience, and I'm really excited for them to catch this and grab the toolbox and apply it to their business. So thank you again for your time, Jeff.
Hey, thanks so much, Rob. I really enjoyed the conversation.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Jeff Cobb. Make sure you're subscribed to the show so you don't miss any of the new episodes as they're published. And if you want to learn more about using Uscreen for your business, or you want to join our affiliate partner program, we'd love to have you. Head over to uscreen.link/podcast to get more information, and I'll see you in the next episode.